Hello everyone, welcome back. I thought I'd do a video today on how you can go about choosing your next miniatures game, or how I go about choosing a miniatures game at least. Maybe I can give you some pointers in my thought process. Might help you to decide if that latest thing you've seen on the internet is really right for you. So I've got a few thoughts written down that I can refer to just to jog the old grey matter. You know how it goes. So the first thing I think about is cost. And that's not so much how much it costs in the outset, although that is obviously is a big factor. We've all got different budgets and everything. For me, £50 is around the benchmark. So anything over £50, I need to really start thinking about whether or not I'm going to sort of buy into it. That's not to say I don't have games that are more than that. Obviously we do, especially when you start buying all the bits and pieces. So cost is there, but part of cost is things like, do you get everything included in the box to play the game? So is there enough stuff for the 2 players, 2 full armies, 2 full sets, 2 full squads or whatever? Or is it a case, I mean, Star Wars Legion, for example, cracking game, but I don't have it yet. It's something I've been looking at, doing a bit of research on, which I'll come to in a minute. But yeah, I'm led to believe that you don't quite get enough for the full 800 points armies. There's not quite enough in the core set for each side of that. So quite often with some games, you find that you have to buy 2 or 3 core sets to get enough bits to have the full size game played. Either that, or there's loads of expansions. So that will come into it as well. Do you need to buy loads of expansions to really make the game worth it, and how expensive are those expansions? So something like Memoir 44, you buy the game and everything's in it. You can play all the missions in the box, all the pieces are there, everything is good to go. But there's other games, like I said, Star Wars Legion maybe is one example where you might need to buy 2 core sets to play the full games. And also there's a series of quite expensive expansions. So cost is the first factor. The next thing I tend to think about is, what else can I use the minis for? This might sound like a bit of a weird one, especially if you're predominantly only play Games Workshop. But yeah, I like to think, so you get rule sets that are mini agnostic. And you can use any manufacturer's minis to play them. Some rule sets are just books, some come with minis, but the minis you can use for other things. So an example I'll give you this is Test of Honor. That's a game, it came with, or the first edition at least, came with loads of minis, and I specifically bought it because I also play a game called Lion Rampant down at the club, which involves lots of armies, medieval style armies, and I knew that even if I didn't like Test of Honor, the minis in there would be suitable to be put together into an army, and I could also use them for Lion Rampant, and I could probably use them for Hail Caesar, and there's other bits and pieces, other games that would use them. So can you use the minis for other things? Things like Bolt Action, for example, you can use the minis in that for Chain of Command, vice versa. They're pretty agnostic. So yeah, are the minis sort of fixed to the game? So like if you've got Space Marines, they're quite difficult to play with for anything else. I mean, you can proxy them into other stuff, but with the minis and the components within the box, can they be used for other games? So you can get more value out of it that way. What scale is it? So here's an example. Black Powder. I seem to be picking on Warlord, I'm not. I just happen to know a few of their games. So Black Powder, for example, when you get the rules and you start looking through them, it does say you can use any scale you like, but all the pictures are taken in 28mm, and you tend to think that's the way to go. But it does recommend, if you're using that 28mm, that really the minimum size table you need is going to be 8 foot, going up from there. So scale wise is quite important to look at. Are you going to have enough room to be able to play the game at that scale, or is it scalable up and down, so that you can adjust it to different sizes you've got? My tables are 4x3 in here, so it's not massive, so scale is quite an important thing to factor in. Other games use a 3x3, some use a 4x4, some of the bigger games are 6x4 and they get higher and higher, as I've just said. So scale, what scale is the game, what scale are the miniatures, how long will it take you to paint them in that scale? If they're 28mm miniatures, they're going to take a lot longer to paint than if they're little 6mm ones. How many of them are included in the game? Is it a case of you just need sort of 10 to 15 per side, or are you going to look at painting sort of a few hundred before you get going? Who would I play the game with? That's quite an important one. It's great having the best game in the world. If you've got no one to play it with, what are you going to do? I mean, there are ways of soloing games, and I'll do a video on how to solo a game a little bit later on, because it's quite a cool thing if you can figure it out. But yeah, who are you going to play it with? Have you got a club that you can go to? I'm lucky, I have, and it's not too hard to find someone to play a game with, even if it's something they've never heard of. You can usually twist someone's arm into giving it a go. And my son as well, I know the sort of things he likes. So have a little think about who you're actually going to be able to play it with. How long will it take it to get excuse me, how long will it take to get it all ready? So what comes in the box, and how much preparation do you need before you can get the game going? You might buy a nice massive big box and everything's in it and it's all great, and there's thousands of miniatures. You see it all the time on Kickstarters, don't you? People do the old pledge managers or whatever, and they end up, the postman comes round with a sack barrow full of boxes and he unloads thousands of miniatures into your house, and it's like Christmas and everyone's really chuffed. But that's going to take months and months and months to get it all up to the standard where you're going to be able to play it, unless you're happy to play with everything unpainted and just sort of stuck together. If you want to set it up with nice terrain, get everything painted, get everything ready, really sort of jump in, make it thematic and everything else, how long is that going to take you, and is that realistic? Do you have the spare time or the hobby time and the basic drive to get it to that point? So that's quite a big factor, I think. Do I already have some stuff I can use for it? So a bit like we were saying, can I use the minis for other things? Do I already own games of a similar genre that have got loads of minis that I might be able to put into that to use? It comes to a point, sort of particularly with historicals, whereby you've got quite a good collection, and it just becomes a case of all you need to do is buy new rule sets. You don't need to buy any more miniatures, because you've got like a full Napoleonic army or Second World War army, whatever. You've got all the gear and you just need to buy a new supplement to try out a new game. It's really cool. Like Rebels and Patriots, I've done a review on here about that. I've already got most of the stuff for that, so I didn't have to buy hardly anything. So that's kind of cool. Have you already got the stuff so that you can use it? So who makes it and how available is it? So we've all got manufacturers, we like their stuff. We've got other manufacturers we're not so keen on. I'm not going to go into that, that's a personal opinion. FFG, for example, they make lots of games and I like the quality of their games. So if it's made by FFG, that would probably tick a box for me, although they're relatively expensive. There's other manufacturers that I'd be less inclined to buy from, and I won't say who they are because that's not fair. You can make your own decision up about that. But also, is it a Kickstarter, or is it going to be a one-off Kickstarter? So you either got to buy everything and then you'll never hear of it again, or are they going to sort of release it commercially and you'll be able to get hold of your expansions? Or is it like certain other companies do, they release a box set for a game and they do a limited print run of it and then it's gone and you can't get hold of a starter set to play it anymore, and everyone down the club's playing it and you think to yourself, oh, I'd quite like to have a go at that, and then you go online to try and find a copy of it and they don't make it even though it was released less than a year ago, and you look on eBay and they're 3 times the price they were. So how able are you going to, what's the availability of it? If you start playing it and someone else, one of your mates wants to join you, are they going to be able to get stuff down the line, that kind of thing? What support is there? I've written down here. So thinking about what support there is the manufacturer, have they got a decent website with, a lot of them will have free downloads, they'll have FAQs, they'll have updates, they'll have army lists and bits and bobs that you can get off the website. They might have tokens or templates, whatever you can get hold of. Is there a presence on social media? Is there like a Facebook group, whatever you can go on, ask people questions and check, get inspiration on how to paint the bits and pieces, stuff like that. Do they have people on YouTube that are making reviews of their games? Is there a way that you can see a demo of the game before you start playing it? So what kind of support there is, or if there isn't, think about how you're going to get on with the game if there's something you don't understand, or So yeah, support anyway. Do you like the type of rules? So I'll go into this in more depth in a later video. It's something else I've got planned. but there's different ways of playing games. You got crunchy games, you got fast-paced games, you got card-based games, you got rule-book-based games. All these different ways of playing all make for quite different games. I know the type of games I like. I know the types of games I'm not so keen on. It's not to say I wouldn't play a game of that type if it was the only type around, but is the style of play for the game that you're looking at the kind of style of play that you enjoy? Because it's all great having something that you really fancy. I I quite like Star Wars. I don't particularly like really crunchy games, and so that would put me off quite a bit. So, and that's where sort of the YouTube things and the reviews and stuff like that help, because you can see playthroughs and everything else. So is it the style of game that you like playing? Some people like card driven games. A lot of the rules are on the cards and you set them all out, and you've got each unit's got its own card. You see everything on the table. Some people don't like that. It causes a lot of clutter and whatever. We'll go into that more in another video. But think about the type of games you enjoy, and is this potential game in that kind of style, or are you trying a new style? That might be a factor in it. And so that's pretty much the things I run through. But what I would say at the end of all of that is, sometimes it doesn't matter. We've all done it. We've all seen things and we've like, it's not the kind of game I like. I haven't got any minis for it. There's no one I'm going to play with. Blah blah blah. But actually, I love it. I just really like that particular subject. It really looks smart, and I'm just going to go for it. So there is always the rule of cool that trumps everything. We've all got things sitting on our shelves that we've probably never played. We probably never will. I'll give you an example of one I've got. I've got this Star Wars role-playing game here. Like I said, I love Star Wars. It's the old D6, the D6 reprint of the. It's in a collector's edition. Everything else costs a little bit of money. I don't know if I'll ever get to play it. It's a sign of my age. It's from when I was young. It brings back happy memories and stuff like that. I got it for probably nostalgia chipped in a lot more than any kind of logic. So there is always that rule of cool. Just be prepared if it's something you really want. You know what I mean? Life's too short. If you can afford it and you're not hurting anybody, you're not going to get in trouble with your wife, blah blah blah, then there you go. That kind of trumps everything, doesn't it? But if it's not something like that and you just sort of seen it, you fancy it, maybe it's worth running through a few things in your head, try and get a little shopping list of ideal things, do a bit of pros and cons balancing, and maybe that will help you make a decision that you're not going to regret in a week's time when you realise you just bought into a Kickstarter for 200 quid and it's not going to be delivered for 6 months and you've got no one to play it with. Maybe if you have a little bit of a think about stuff beforehand, it might help you to make better decisions, better gaming decisions. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like these. I'm going to try and do them fairly regularly. So yeah, if you're enjoying them, hit the subscribe button and YouTube will tell you when there's another one out. So other than that, see you later. Ta-ra.